about you? How to start your journey in cybersecurity? Age of 13. I see that many of you are age of 13. Stay with us. And now we will invite the representatives of Positive Technologies. That's the main organizer of PhD 2025. They will tell you how to embark on cybersecurity and how to become an expert. And I invite to that stage the head of the Department for University Engagement, Oleg Ignatov. Hello, hello. And his young friends. Certainly young friends. We all are young people. Timofey Sheev, Maxim Shevchenko and Grigory Razamazov. Please welcome them. Come on, keep smiling. So they are wearing T-shirts. And let's speak about how to start our journey in cybersecurity and how to become specialists. Hello, everyone. Hello, Olympiski Luzhniki, because today we are in Luzhniki. So let's put our hands together to our today's guests, because it's, well, not easy to come to the stage to look into your eyes. You are too far away from us, so it would be easy a little bit. So, hi, everyone. First of all, I'm glad to see you personally, because before that, we met only online, seeing each other on the screens, and that's a great thing about cybersecurity. You can know people, similarly you can know people for quite a while, but you will see them live only once. So thank you so much for arriving. Our session is called, if I'm not mistaken, It is Never Too Early. How to start your journey in cybersecurity. You are not age 13. Tell us more how happens that you are here on that stage, and when you embarked on that, when you started doing that, why age 13? Probably you started doing that even before. And let's start, I do not know who we start with. Any volunteers to be the first? Well, let's start with you. Over to you. Okay, let's start with me. I started doing cybersecurity age of 15, 16. Quite recently had an experience of working in the red team, but this has nothing to do with the topic at hand. And the beginning was quite easy, so I saw several videos on YouTube, which was accessible from Russia. I got interested in that and delved into that. I decided to do some forensics, and first I tried specially dedicated sites, and then I got an invitation to some group and worked there. Sounds great.
Кибершпион. Да, я начал там разведку, какие-то ресурсы, надеюсь, трансляцию.
And it seems like,
Если, собственно, я Олег, у меня, к сожалению, имени не сокращается.
by the way, my name is Oleg, and I believe you don't mind if I call you just first name and short pet name, nickname. So, Max, now over to you. Well, in IT, I started in IT, not in cybersecurity. I started when I was 7 years old, where I got to my cyber security, or rather robotics courses in a local school. Then I was invited to improve my Python skills in a different group, and my fellow groupmates were 15 and I was 9 at the time. So I was able to graduate from that course, and as I ranked 8 of 14 people, and it was actually quite good considering the age difference. This is how cybersecurity came into my life. I was about 12, 13, and I actually watched a lot of YouTube videos. I watched a lot of videos on viruses, on information security, how to protect yourself in the internet, and this is how I got into the cybersecurity and IT. That's actually a very interesting way you got into security. You started IT and then you migrated to cybersecurity. Grisha, now your turn. My story is a little bit simpler. I would say that I started in point A and I got to point B. I started with financial literacy projects. I studied them. I wanted to improve. And then I got to information security topics. I started to delve deeper. I created projects for schools and for myself. And then I reached the cybersecurity area. I've created a number of bots, and Mark II was the most successful one. And this is which promotes me in the cybersecurity space. And I try to improve and bolster its efficiency and what kind of educational effect you can get from it. And Mark II is exactly the same what I was talking about before. Guys, we've started talking about 13 years. Grisha, how old are you? I'm 16. I'll be 17 this year. I'm also 16, and I will be 17 in a month. And I'm 17. So it seems like this area. Actually, have you been around this place? Did you see what do we have here? Yes, obviously, we've been around here before the festival. Well, what I mean, a few days ago, the day before yesterday. Yes, and I was going around today. You say that you've been here the day before yesterday. What do you mean? Well, I mean that I came to Moscow from Lipetsk, so I wanted to take a tour around Moscow, go around Luzhniki, how they prepare for the festival, and it seemed that everything was ready. So I had to go around to the cable road and go and see the Vorobyovy Gory, one of the land sites in Moscow. And I was lucky actually to see it. I think I was quite lucky. I got into the cab and it was raining, and I got from point A to point B during the rain, and when I got outside, the rain stopped. So I was quite lucky for using this cable car road. Max, and what about you? Well, I'm a Muscovite. We live together and we studied together with Timofey. Well, we live nearby. We came here in the morning. We went around quite a lot of interesting booths from our partners, and yep, that's how it goes. Tim, you said that you are from Moscow, but maybe you can say anything else. Maybe you want to add anything else. No, actually, the guys already mentioned everything I wanted to say. There are quite a few interesting booths and interesting universities. Well, you said there are some interesting universities. You might also imply that there are some non-interesting universities, but let's not go deeper into this topic. Well, you say that you had different ways to get into cybersecurity, from IT, from information security. What do you think the difference here is? Cybersecurity, cyber information, info security. Do you think there is a difference between those different phrases? Cybersecurity is within information security. Information security is how to store your information, both physical and on the internet, on the different devices, but it's also protection from different threats, including the internet threats, but also maybe a fire which can be set by a criminal who wants to get something from you physically. I have another question. For common people, what's the difference? You say physical protection or maybe non-physical protection. How can you say the difference? How can you say the difference between cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is when people want to hack your database, but physical security is when people want to kidnap your IT department personnel and actually get the password out of him by kicking it out of him. What do you think, Max? I agree with Timofey, and I think that information security is within cybersecurity is within information security because it's all about information protection. And I completely agree with Timofey. There is a lot of synergy here, and I can see that you study together. Just to sum it up, information security is a group of all different securities: financial security, information security, and all of them together provide you with information security. But obviously, if we are very pedantic, there are some peculiarities, some attributes which you studied. There are some differences between them. Still, the question, if we are talking about the importance, what do you think, Grigory? What's the difference and what's the importance? We're not talking about the theory, we're not talking the academics, we're not talking papers, but just for a common person who came to the festival, who watches us online, what is more important, cybersecurity or information security? Or you cannot ask this question. Maybe it's not relevant, maybe it's not a correct question to ask it like this. I think, yes, this is not the correct way to ask this question. Different people have different needs, and I think everyone needs information security because it involves all the areas, financial security, internet. But if someone uses software, obviously they would need to work with cybersecurity more because they use the cyberspace, they use the internet, and therefore they need cybersecurity. Max, what about you? I think this is not an exactly correct way to put this question because cybersecurity is a part of information security, so we cannot say that one is more important than the other. I would say both are equally important. And true, like Tim said, you can protect the database, but not necessarily you can protect the person who can be kidnapped and forcefully asked to give up the question. Yes, just like the guy said, this is not the correct way to put the question. Cybersecurity is a specific area of information security. You cannot say that one area is more important than the other. I understand. I think maybe the question, I agree, maybe this is the way, this is not the correct way to put it. But if we take a look at the common life, people who work in cybersecurity, they are a little bit twisted in a professional way, maybe a little bit paranoid, I would say. Do you have this kind of experience? Maybe you will have this kind of experience. So the question is, for a common person, when we are talking about an average citizen, maybe an average school boy or schoolgirl, do they need cybersecurity or information security? Truth be told, an average school children would face information security, not exactly cybersecurity, but also depends on the school children, because when we're talking about children from factory in Chelyabinsk, probably they will face not cybersecurity threats, but information security threats. Max, over to you. I believe that for school children, it will be more about cybersecurity, because now, at least in Moscow, there is a lot of digitalization going into the education system. We have e-boards, we have e-diaries. Yesterday, there was a webinar for mathematics, and we were able to play with simulators for Moscow school. And I think for an average school children from Moscow, cybersecurity is more important. But obviously, you should not forget about information security. Yes, I agree that for an average school boy or school girl, cybersecurity is more important because this is their environment. Obviously, you should not forget about normal information security because they can be contacted by phones, cameras, ask for the contacts of their parents and maybe try and hack them and try to do something physically. So they should not forget about information security, but obviously they are in this cyberspace, so that's why cybersecurity is more important. Yes, so we have a script, we have a script that I'm more interested in talking to you. When we're talking about the school, maybe you have a story, unless you can share this. Grisha, did you have some stories when somebody wanted to hack something, or maybe something was hacked? Something interesting that happened to you. Well, you mean inside the actual facility? No, this did not happen. Or did you mean like the school as an environment? We had 2 calls from one of the school officials. They named the number of our school and they said that they wanted our passport credentials and they wanted to update them. I have no idea why they wanted passport credentials from school children, and I had no idea why they needed this. So I shared my data, but my friend decided to ask even more questions. And after he asked several follow-up questions, they actually gave up and didn't care about his data. I never heard about those phone calls to teenagers when somebody asks you about your personal data. I never knew this actually happened, so I had no idea somebody cares about teenager personal data. I support Grisha. I had similar problems with phone scammers, and it's actually very simple. You just talk to them until they give up, and you do not use any links then they share. You can actually learn a lot from this conversation about yourself, about your family, where do you study, where do you work. And speaking about schools, we have e-boards, and that's quite a recent improvement. In the beginning, I actually ran Windows and we played video games on these e-boards, and we actually hacked them a little bit. There are quite a lot of different scams around the school environment, especially on the internet. My friends got in some troubles. One of my friends actually had to pay 10,000 rubles. He lost 10,000 rubles. He wanted to sell one of his digital assets, and the link was stopped, and he used a different link, and then he lost the money. What exactly is a digital asset, if it's not a secret? I would say it is a secret, and if I talk about this online, he might take offense. My biggest sin in the school when I saw the password for the sysadmin in school. But I think somebody could have actually done something more important in terms of hacking there, because I didn't do anything that had anything to do with cybersecurity in school. When people are talking about cybersecurity, it's more about billions and millions. But when we go to municipality level, to school level, for me, it's not really about money, but I had no idea that so many scammers are permeating this environment at this level. It's not at the top level, more like at the bottom level in terms of money. And Grisha, you said that when you started going into IT and cybersecurity when you were 7, you've used a video service. Well, obviously, I do not want to say YouTube, so we're saying video service. And you used one of the video services, and you had very interesting information. So what exactly did you watch on YouTube that pushed you towards the IT or maybe cybersecurity? Maybe you have a story to share. I actually do not really remember. I think it was some kind of in-detail professional video, and I learned, oh, actually, you can do this. And I got interested in this and started digging. And I had good Googling skills. So that's basically what I did. What was the video about? Was it about hackers? Was it about something else? There are stories that hackers are really idealized, and they say that if you want to be a hacker, you basically a spy, and there is a certain level of idealization. Do you remember what you watched there? Well, people idealize a lot of crime. Maybe you are a single person going against the government and you seem like a tough guy, but I don't think that's a good idea. I honestly don't remember what I watched.
Max,
Max, what do you think? I will talk about criminals a little bit later, but I would like to talk about the videos I watched. I saw some virus videos. What I mean by virus videos are videos that People talked about different viruses and how you can protect yourself, how you can protect your friends, your relatives from negative effects of viruses. And this is how I got to cybersecurity, information security. And speaking about idealization, I think it's kind of strange or maybe weird that bad, quote unquote, people are considered ideal or good. I don't really get it. I do not like gangster movies. I do not like this romantic part of life. Yep, we have quite a number of gangster movies. Speaking about idealization of hacker attacks and so on, one must remember that we have three types of hackers: white, black, and gray. Obviously, this is what I wanted to say too. Black hackers are very different from white hackers, and white hackers are basically ethical hackers. They hack into the networks and they do it for the good. Black hackers do it for their personal gains, and gray hackers are kind of in between. They might do it for financial gain, or they might do it for some moral reasons. I have no idea why somebody would idealize criminals and what do they do. I do understand why this happens, because many people would like to change, maybe would like to lie, so to say, to themselves, so that they would not realize that they are actually committing a crime, and that's why they idealize it. That's why they have this additional philosophical
Вопрос был, на самом деле, ты изначально даже не про романтизацию.
philosophical questions. The original question was not actually about idealization. The question was, what did you see? What did you watch in those videos that helped you went this way? I think I didn't really see anything. I went to cybersecurity from info security. I watched the videos just to get something from those videos so that I could use them in my bots. Then I could improve my bots on financial literacy. And then you use them again and again, and maybe you watch YouTube again and again, tons of videos during the day, during the night. And this is what usually happens to me. I watched a lot of videos on cybersecurity, on information security, on financial literacy, and I decided, well, maybe I should go into this cybersecurity area. It's kind of interesting because all of you are talking about hackers,
Хакер равно преступник. Ну, на самом
where hacker means a criminal. And I absolutely agree.
Кроме там white, black и grey.
Besides white, black, and gray, there are yellow hackers, green hackers, there are a lot of hackers. But you are correct in saying that there are more than one type of hackers. When we're talking about white hackers, the ethical hackers, you said,
В принципе, первый шаг был что-то связано с
in general, the first step was
что-то про вирусы, что-то там
more about videos talking about different viruses and how to protect yourself from their negative effects. I think that's a very interesting story on how you got into information security. In order to know how to protect yourself, you have to know how they may attack you. And this is how it happens in boxing. If you are a boxer, it doesn't mean that you are a criminal. But you have the technique. You have the striking technique. The question is how and when you use it. The same applies to hackers. Grisha, maybe you can share your experience with your project you are really proud of. Do you have this kind of project? Well, that's exactly Mark II. Mark II is exactly the project I'm really proud of.
Давай так, чтобы было прям супер понятно и интересно.
Хорошо. Ну, во-первых,
Okay, in detail so that,
это вторая
yes, Mark II is version 2 of Mark, but it's more successful one. The first version was the financial literacy bot, and Mark II is more about cyber security and cyber literacy, and now it remains as it is.
Я пошел по пути наименьшего сопротивления его создания.
I started with the least resistance path. To create it, I've used third-party
Выстраиваешь алгоритм.
websites where you can use the code constructor. You basically think a little bit and you put all them together. Later, I realized that I would not have the flexibility of changing the code to my goals and aims. That's why I started to learn a few programming languages and dynamic libraries. And then
ручно через
I had the whole script of that bot,
на виртуальную машину, чтобы он круглосуточно.
and then I used JavaScript using a virtual machine.
Изначально, когда я
And I
подключил
had to learn how to
машину,
write
он не хотел.
in JavaScript, and then I had to learn how to use the virtual machine. I tried to get access from different ways. I tried using remote consoles, keys, and it didn't actually work.
Проснулся, поспал,
In 2 days,
осенило. А что
I had no idea what to do, and then I realized maybe it was not about the code.
почитал пару статей.
Then I got to this virtual machine websites, I read a few articles, and then I subscribed to a
Всем запрос.
non-working
Долбил
virtual machine, so it don't just reply.
машину, и всё заработало
It,
прям с первого.
it simply did not work, so I took a different virtual machine, and it actually worked and ran without any problems.
Также продолжил участвовать с этим ботом, как и раньше.
Then I continued to work on this bot. I improved and enhanced my code.
Немножечко
Originally,
написан.
it was not exactly streamlined. All the texts
Ищешь что-то,
were in the simple txt file or in the simple file. And when you want to find this, you would have to go line by line, maybe 150 lines below, just to check,
чтобы все-таки это было и
edit a single letter. And then I decided to split them into different files so that it would be easier to manage the code for myself and for other people who might work on this code too. And this is how I improved my skills. Maybe you can talk about the actual idea why you wanted to do this and who's the target audience.
Когда я это начинал делать, у нас
The point is that when I started, we only saw the inception for the IT specialty, especially in my local city.
какие-то программы для
We had some programs for IT classes in schools,
классы, которые нацелены на все.
like dedicated IT classes
Достаточно
for IT people. And I thought there are younger generations and we have older generations who are not very good at cybersecurity,
страницам, ссылкам.
at information security, how to use the internet in a secure and safe way. And I thought maybe I could create a resource, a way to bring about the information about basic internet hygiene, which would be suitable for any ages. And when I started to work on it, I realized that there is no silver bullet because different people prefer different ways to acquire new information. And that's why I changed my idea. In my bot, I had 3 different scripts for 3 different types of users, for children and teenagers, for adults, and for elderly people. On the first one, we have different comic strips and images so that it would not be too difficult for children to take in. For adults, it's more about articles so that they can delve deeper. And for elderly people, I use videos and audiobooks so that it will be easier for them to listen to the information because many people have problems with their eyesight when they have to go through very long articles. And I think that's a very good approach. You started learning different languages. I learned how to work with virtual machines and I started with my bot. It seemed simple. What happened with you, Max? I had 2 interesting projects and they are connected. The first one happened in 2022.
На тот момент
One was the Muscovite helper, Muscovite assistant.
Извини, нет, в смысле? Я хотел вопрос задать.
What do you mean?
Это там, где ты фоткаешь тачки?
Muscovite assistant, where you
нет, это было
take photos of cars so that people would be fined if they park on the wrong spot. No, it was a different bot. You can use the QR code
задать вопрос, назначить
from different location and you can ask a question, you can set up an interview, maybe you can report a problem.
органами
If
самоуправления.
there was no way to contact a local municipality, then it was moved to a higher authority. And usually the problems would be solved in 2 or 3 days, and it was a good implementation. And for me, it was a breakthrough in order to create these bots. Simple bots are not complex, but that was a new level because I had to synchronize all that with Google Tables so that all the questions, all the reports would go there,
людям через бот.
and then they would go through the bot to the people. I think that's a very interesting one. Using Google Tables in 2022, but
Вопрос,
later we'll ask Tim about this.
откуда?
The question is,
Зачем ты это сделал? Трубу прорвало?
why did you decide to do this? Did you have a problem you could not solve yourself? Why did you decide to do this?
У нас там случился
The reason is that
связаться с местными
we actually had a problem, and I wanted to contact my local authorities, and I couldn't do this. You had to go through so much red tape, and it was impossible. You had to phone somebody, you had to prepare and
дозваниваются и так
do it in advance, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
делать.
And I realized that why we cannot streamline the process and make it so much faster for myself and for other people. So I thought I had this kind of opportunity, and we worked with my partner on this project together.
Да, я сам связался с политическим.
Yes, I contacted the political party, and they agreed to create this project, and we implemented this project together. The second project was with the university. Thanks to the Muscovite assistant, I was noticed by Ran Hicks, and they had a new program for Russian governmentship. And they wanted to make it digital so that people would not just go to all the lectures. They wanted to have all the lectures, all the exams, to have additional surveys after them. You use a QR code, and then you file your work, file your essay maybe, and it was done. And I think this was my best project. Even after I
Надь, привет.
severed the ties with the university, they stole my idea and they still use it. So I think that was a really good project. These are two my biggest projects. And with Aran Hicks, I had this
Первый зачет. Я
this real problem, and I had a few mistakes in the code,
соответственно,
and when we had a lot of users, it did not register the answers in the correct way. So there was a mismatch between checking the correctness and incorrectness of different answers, and we had to work extra hours to solve the problems. Well, I hope the RANIPA students were grateful to you for this kind of
честно скажу,
little mishap. I would say that
скорее было больше недовольных студентов.
bot did not work because so many people wanted to use it.
Ходил, сам лично слушал.
I used it a few times. I got feedback. I would say it was 60% positive and 40% negative on what I could improve and what to do. It was more about buying a better hosting, because the bot could not just operate, because sometimes a few hundred students could use it at the same time, and it just was not strong enough. And this happened a few times. Sometimes they had to move the lectures, but in the end, it was the happy ending, and all the students passed the exams, so that's good. All good, that ends good. I think that's a very interesting story. That's a common thing, that when people want to do something well and it doesn't really work because there are some mistakes in the process. I think this happens, but you have to change. You have to adjust in the process. There may be negative consequences, but I was able to adjust. I was flexible enough to adjust on the go, and in the end, it was pretty good. Tim, and finally you.
Не существует как таковых.
I do not really have specific projects due to my work. I information security specialist. I do not code. I'm looking for mistakes and errors in other people's codes. But I can talk about maybe peculiarities working
И пентестеры.
from red team and pen testing. Yes, whatever you can share.
В таком случае немножко поподробнее на эту тему.
Well, in that case, let me elaborate on that topic. Pin test. That's, roughly speaking, is, well, this is not a simulation of an attack
Вы знаешь,
or hacking. Can I give an example? so that we could understand that better. Pin test, roughly speaking, is when you get a list of IP or MAC addresses.
Вам выдается конкретный метод атаки.
And also you
Служба,
get the method of an attack.
оповещена она вам.
And the cyber authorities are informed about that. And actually, you check with this or that address. So if you can hack it, okay. If you cannot hack it, it is even better. The red team is closer to the simulation of a real attack. And the customer usually is not knowledgeable about that. Only the director or cybersecurity chief officer would be informed about that. You have no limitations in terms of the list, no limitations in terms of the methods, except for some illegal ones.
Реальная хакерская.
And you keep on working as a hacker group. You collect the data about vulnerabilities. You try to hack that. And the security system would try to reject that attack. And it knows nothing about you. You are criminals for them. And it shows how well protected this or that website is, what this or that program, depending on what you are checking.
Обязательно, если у тебя будет время,
Well, sounds great. And if you have time, get to the booth of the booth and you will see what is going on in terms of red teaming. So it means that pin test, this is when, in plain language, and correct me if I'm wrong, when, for instance, you have some website
надпись, что
and we as ordinary people see that it says .ru, but in essence it has some IP address, and you are told that, for instance, that's a website, that's a login and password, and can you actually somehow sniffer
символы пока оно не снимается.
password or write some symbols unless it collapses? Well, this is over a simplistic way, but this is how it works. But red teaming is when you are instructed to get a full authorization. But how you do that, we are not interested in that. Well, not necessarily actually the full authorization, but for instance, you are told that's a website and do something about that. I think that you have to have stories that you will not disclose, but stories about such a failure when something goes wrong, probably with a happy end. Have you ever had anything like that? Well,
Как бы так сказать? У меня другая специальность. У меня не существует.
I have a different specialty, so I don't have any failures. I have delays. For instance, if there are no some specific vulnerabilities, we'll be looking for other vulnerabilities. But there are no websites which have no vulnerabilities at all. So, never been a case that you are given an instruction and you
Но не
entered a wrong door. Actually, we can fail only on the timeline, but not on the main objective.
Какой был самый
Gregory, what about you?
Макс расскажет.
What was the main failure? Why I'm not asking Maxim, because he told us about Ranepa bot. Have you had any such a failure when, for instance, you say, okay, I quit, I don't want that anymore? No, I cannot remember any such disastrous failure. The worst case scenario which I had in cybersecurity career, that's inability to get connected to the virtual machines, when for 2 days actually would be sitting and thinking what to do next. Because actually I had to make sure that my bot works 24/7, and I failed to do that, and only then a crazy idea helped me to fix that. So I didn't have disastrous failures or epic failures, but that delay once actually nearly knocked me down. So there is a question that
Если ты бы вернулся назад, что бы ты сделал?
among the most favorite among the psychologists, for instance, if you could get back to the past, would you do anything differently?
Потому что
No, I'm satisfied with everything because this is my life rule. If
я мог бы быть уже совсем.
actually, but it had not happened to me, I won't be here. So I never complain of any problems, any actions anyway. All the problems could be solved, and they harden our
Ничего плохого. И поэтому
posture and nature, and there is nothing bad about that. So even if I had a chance to get back to the past, I would say, go on, and you will get everything eventually.
Макс, у тебя?
Well, that's a very good maxima. What about you, Maxim?
Надо слушать.
Well, I would tell myself that we have to listen to the adults, because when I was younger, very often I would ignore the advice of my senior colleagues and sometimes I face situations with looming dire consequences. I could avoid that, but I tried to correct the problem before I had some negative ramifications. But if I could listen to my teachers, to my senior colleagues, this would never happen to me. So I would tell myself, please be attentive and listen to what other people tell you and be more adequate in assessing your forces. Okay. Tim, what about you? What I can do differently? So we are
Вернулся назад.
sniffing different methods. This is my job. So, and if you could get back to the past, you would say, okay, let me try something else. I cannot think of anything like that. Well,
Работа, правильно же, да? Работа.
this is a job, right? Can I call it a job? Your job
Она необычная, да, там.
is very unusual.
Я уверен, что
For many people, this is very much unusual, and I'm sure that this is so true for many of you. And most likely you would be called a hacker. Hacker Timothy. Well, first of all, I did not tell anyone what my profession is about. But we have live streaming. But no, I'm not a hacker. In essence, I'm an intelligence officer. I do not hack it myself. I collect information and pass it over to the people who can do that. I've only collected the data.
Из открытых источников.
I collected the data from the open sources. I've rendered that to necessary people, and that's it. So if I understand what a cylinder is about, that's a person who is responsible for collecting the data from open sources. Yes, open source intelligence, open source. This means what it means, and if you're familiar with
Разведка. Ну,
English, and intelligence means intelligence. So that's it.
на мой взгляд, ты мне
So it happens so.
такая
And correct me if I'm wrong. It is a very boring word. Means that you have a set of methods and you are repeating them all the time. So how avoid burnout? So the world now lives much faster. What do you do in order to enjoy that? This is not monotonous. This is not boring. I'm involved not only in a city, but also involved in the human intelligence into human beings, including social engineering.
ну, теоретически это не применялось,
This includes in theory.
в том числе и всякие под...
I've never applied that in practice, but for instance, this is about bribing or threats. Yes, certainly. We speak only about legal things.
были согласны.
So, but everyone was warned about the methods.
Это получается достаточно разнообразной работой, потому
So this is a very diverse work because, again,
что каждый раз новый
sometimes you have data, you are short of data, and every new method would bring about new results. And this is not a boring
пока что условно, что тебе
job.
прям это скучно, тебе прям нравится.
So this is not boring, and you enjoy whatever you are doing. Well, bear in mind the number of my hobbies. There is no time to burn out. So you have certain hobbies, yes. Will you tell us about at least one? For instance, MMA.
Разведку
Well, that's great.
да, human intelligence и рукопашку.
You said that actually, human intelligence and MMA. Okay, so these are things matching. My hobby at the moment is about swimming.
И не в спортшколе.
And although I'm not going to the sports school, but I try to combine professional swimming and IT, and thanks to the pandemic, I failed to do that. It spoiled everything, and now
Основным хобби.
swimming is my main hobby, apart from IT.
Оно помогает
And it helps you not to burn out. Yes, it does help.
время. Ты просто остаешься вот для меня.
Because for some time, for me, swimming is just about being alone with my ideas. So while I'm swimming, I can think about whatever you want. And the time lapses differently. You can understand everything, contemplate on that, and come up with the conclusions. And this is a totally different atmosphere.
Помогает от выгорания, да.
And it helps me to avoid burnout. Well,
Ну, тут
great.
немного
How to avoid the burnout? Well,
родным и близким, что вы
with a grain of humor, just tell your family members that you're a programmist or software developer. And it will never be boring because when you say that you're an IT guy, then every time, every month, I hear a phrase, Gregory, you're an IT guy. And will be some task that I will have to solve. Well, it may have something to do with my profession, but
Или посмотри на холодочек.
for instance, put the
я единственный знаю,
working to the socket or something like that. So I know the school password from our school notebook, and every time when the video is off or sound is off, they are calling me for rescue. And actually, not only my class does that, but other classes do the same. So you can collect more hobbies, where, for instance, you can follow my funny piece of advice. For instance, I want to help, and this way I will learn more things, or I will upgrade my skills, and that would help you not to burn out. And in essence, once you're writing a code, when you do programming, a problem may pop up that something doesn't work. Anyway, you have to overcome that, to fix that problem. And after it starts working again, you will be happy, so much happy, that, for instance, it will occur to you why I've not done before. And that very moment helps me to avoid the burnout. We don't have much time as far as we're speaking about. That's something that occurs to you, and the world will become more beautiful. So, and there are many more people who are watching our streaming, and there are people who are sitting on the pillows. Share just one piece of advice. How to embark on IT or cybersecurity. Once we're speaking about cybersecurity, just share one piece of advice. One tip to the future generations. Let me start. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Those who never make mistakes, they are not doing anything. Well, great tip. Timothy, don't stop. Stagnation doesn't exist. There is either development or degrading. If you do not develop, you lag behind. Work on. Okay, excellent. And Grigory, you are the last one. So anyway, give it a try to something new. Don't be afraid of trying something new. Anyway, you can always say, I can do that. And then actually you will see whether you really can do that or not. If you can do that, well, that's great. If not, that would be an experience. My dear colleagues, those who watched us, I love very much when we welcome such speakers as Gregory, Timothy, and Maxim. They do all the work instead of you. They give you smart advice. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for staying tuned, and see you again. And guys, thank you so much for coming. That is very valuable. See you at the festival. Let me announce these people, because all the time I was smiling. Some MMA fighter and swimming. So I'm specializing in crawl style. And the rider of virtual machines. So 3 sports athletes, and age of 16, being smart like that. And actually, and you are sharing very philosophical ideas. And you're quoting from Winston Churchill, who saved and rescued the whole England. Never quit, never quit. The winner is not the most talented, is not the strongest, is not the most cunning one, but the one who never quit. And Grigory said, I'm just happy. If I could do something differently, I would not be staying on that stage. And you love being with us, and I'm age of 40, and I feel, well, I like it being here. So why am I so anxious? You said that swimming, along with IT, was spoiled by the pandemic, and I'm writing to my customers from IT industry that I apologize. Amid the pandemic, I had a project, but I failed to complete that because of the pandemic, and you said the same. But I say, okay, I love it being here. Oleg Ignatov, head of the department for young people's engagement, and Timothy Shane, Maxim Shevchenko, and Gregory Razamazov. That was cool. Thank you so much. What nice people, what smart guys we welcomed. So I wish you to have great summer.